Hello and welcome. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran and you're watching News Night on DD India, your prime-time destination for news and bespoke analysis. It's good to see you again. All right, on the show tonight, we get you the latest on the bird flu situation in the country. Now, the government has stepped up vigil, but please remember there is no need to panic. We tell you why. Also on the show, the Indian Foreign Minister is visiting Sri Lanka. Who did he meet and what did he discuss? We get you a report from Colombo. And the latest from the elections in the US state of Georgia, the results of which are very, very crucial for US President-elect Joe Biden. Plus, news and updates from India and the world. All that and much, much more coming up over the next 1 hour. But first, as always, the headlines. Government steps up vigil after bird flu reported from 5 states. Health Ministry sets up a multidisciplinary team. Officials dispatched to Kerala. Environment Ministry issues advisory for states on preventive and control measures. Another dry run of COVID-19 vaccination to take place on 8th January. States make elaborate arrangements. Good news in the fight against the coronavirus. Only 1 death per million population in the last 10 days. Recovery rate at 96.36%. Prime Minister Modi holds a video conference with his German counterpart Angela Merkel. Discusses about the response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Assures the German leader of India's commitment to deploy its capacities for the benefit of the world. External Affairs Minister Subramaniam Jaishankar calls on Sri Lankan President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, reiterates commitment to India's neighbourhood first policy in talks with his Sri Lankan counterpart Dinesh Gunawardena, reassures Colombo of supplying COVID-19 vaccines. Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath orders strict action against the culprits involved in the gang rape of a 50-year-old woman in Badaun. Special task force to probe the crime. Police arrests 2 suspects. A fast-track court to hear the matter. Large parts of northern India, including Delhi and NCR, likely to be in the grip of fog for the next 3 days. Rain disrupts life in the capital on Wednesday. Heavy snowfall in Jammu and Kashmir, Himachal Pradesh and Uttarakhand. Democrat Rafael Warnock beats Kelly Lofla of the Republican Party to win 1 election in the US state of Georgia. But Democrats need to win the 2nd seat in order to wrest control of the upper chamber of the US legislature. And in sport, India announces its playing 11 for the 3rd test against Australia starting on Thursday in Sydney. Rohit Sharma returns to the team. Navdeep Saini to make his debut. Both teams have won a match each in the 4-match series. Right, so first up, we'll get you all the news about the bird flu situation in the country. Take a look at this report prepared just for you.
The coronavirus pandemic is yet to abate, but the spectre of a bird flu outbreak is now looming large over the country. Cases of the disease have cropped up among migratory birds and poultry in Kerala, Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, Himachal Pradesh and Haryana. The centre has taken the matter seriously and the Wildlife Division of the Environment Ministry has written to Chief Secretaries of all states and union territories to take all measures to stop the spread of the disease to humans and other domestic animals or birds. A control room has been set up in Delhi to closely monitor the situation. The disease remains zoonotic and there is no proof yet of it spreading among humans due to the consumption of infected poultry and related products.
उसके लिए एक कंट्रोल रूम रहता है जिसका वेबसाइट हमारा ओपन है, उस पर सारे गाइडलाइन हैं। एडवाइजरी भी हमने जारी कर दिया है। भारत सरकार अलर्ट है, राज्य अलर्ट है। राज्यों के से नमूने भी भोपाल जा रहे हैं और घबराने की कोई बात नहीं है।
लेकिन आज तक हिंदुस्तान में इसका वैसे ट्रांसमिट हो सकती है ह्यूमन में, लेकिन ट्रांसमिशन की कोई रिपोर्ट आज तक हिंदुस्तान में रिपोर्टेड नहीं हुई है। तो अभी जो भी है उसके प्रिवेंटिव मेजर जो करते हैं, कोई ट्रीटमेंट तो इसका है नहीं, लेकिन सावधानी बरतें सभी प्रदेश सरकारें, और जो उनका डिस्पोजल ठीक हो बर्ड्स का जो मर चुकी हैं, और उसको किसी तरह से मूवमेंट रेस्ट्रिक्ट किया जाए बर्ड्स का इस समय पे, यही कुछ सावधानियां हैं। इसकी सावधानी है, ट्रीटमेंट इसका नहीं है।
Nonetheless, Union Health Ministry has deployed multidisciplinary teams to avian influenza affected Alapura and Kottayam districts in Kerala and Panchkula district in Haryana. The teams have been sent to assist state health departments in implementing the disease containment plan. Another high-level team comprising Director NCDC and Joint Secretary and COVID-19 Nodal Officer, Ministry of Food Processing Industries, has been deployed in Kerala. The Kerala government is taking containment measures after the infection was confirmed in ducks in 5 panchayats of the 2 districts. It's been declared a special state emergency in Kerala.
We have identified around 10,500 ducklings or birds around the infected area. All the 10,500 will be culled in the next 2 days. Action has already been started, and the process has started yesterday. Post-operative sanitization work will also be completed.
In Madhya Pradesh, Chief Minister Shivraj Singh Chauhan called an emergency meeting on Wednesday to assess the efforts being made to stop the spread of the bird flu in the state. He issued instructions for inspection of all poultry farms at the district level. In Uttar Pradesh, following directions issued by Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath, instructions have been issued by the Animal Husbandry Department for regular surveillance at poultry farms.
चिंता की जरूरत नहीं है, लेकिन कोई भी पोल्ट्री फार्म में अभी हमने रैंडम चेक करने के निर्देश दिए। ये बीमारी नहीं है। मैंने कलेक्टर्स को निर्देश दिए हैं कि जिले में जितने भी पोल्ट्री फार्म हैं उनके संचालकों से बात करके पूरी गाइडलाइन जारी करें।
State government officials are also on their toes in Rajasthan to tackle the rising cases of bird flu. The Animal Husbandry Department is making all efforts to save migratory birds from the disease at the Bharatpur National Bird Sanctuary.
आने वाले समय में हम इसकी रोकथाम कर पाए, जहां भी जगह चिन्हित होती है वहां इस संक्रमण को रोकने का हम पूरा प्रयास करेंगे। एक तरह से जैसे कोरोना में हम स्प्रे करते थे, तो जहां भी ये पाए जाते हैं उसके 1-1.5 किलोमीटर के अंदर पूरा स्प्रे करके फिर इस वायरस को खत्म करने का काम प्रदेश की सरकार करेगी, विभाग करेगा।
Over 2,700 migratory birds have died due to avian influenza in Himachal Pradesh. Kangra district administration has stopped the sale of poultry and fishery products in 4 divisions of the district adjoining Pong Dam. Surveillance has been stepped up in several other states after cases of bird flu emerged in 5 states. Tamil Nadu has initiated several preventive measures at the border adjoining Kerala. Himachal adjoining state Uttarakhand has also issued an alert on Tuesday. Forest divisions of the state have been directed to maintain strict vigil against the disease. The Animal Husbandry Department in Gujarat has also been put on alert. The first outbreak of avian influenza in India took place in 2006. Not a single case of the disease spreading to humans has been detected in India so far. The virus usually spreads in India after the arrival of migratory birds from September onwards through the winter. With Thiruvananthapuram, Bhopal, Shimla, Jaipur and Lucknow bureaus, Newsnight Desk, DD India.
Right, so that was our cover story on the bird flu situation in the country tonight as we speak. Now, I'm going to take a moment or two to run you through some more information for the benefit of viewers who might not be familiar with the issues at hand here. And I'll pull up some graphics on the wall behind me. Now, this will address some of the frequently asked questions as well. First up, what is bird flu? Now, the World Health Organization, the WHO, calls it H5N1. Now, what is H5N1? It's a type of influenza virus. It is a virus, and it's also called avian influenza or bird flu. Remember, it is highly infectious as well. Next up, what does this virus do to birds and humans alike? Now, it causes a respiratory disease in birds in particular. The virus does not infect humans easily. Now, person-to-person transmission is highly unusual, but infection in humans can cause severe disease because mortality rate is sometimes as high as 60% in humans. So please avoid contact with infected live or dead birds. Now, moving on, what are the symptoms of this disease? Now, these symptoms could range from high fever, cough, sore throat, muscle ache, to abdominal pain, chest pain, diarrhea, shortness of breath, and or pneumonia as well. If you're wondering what the treatment is all about, well, it may require hospitalization, but antiviral medicine called oseltamivir can be used as well. The next question is there a vaccine for this disease? Well, candidate vaccines to prevent H5N1 have been developed, but now this is an important but. They are not ready for widespread use just yet. Right, moving on, some more background for you. Bird flu virus circulating in world for centuries now. Now, 4 known outbreaks have been reported in the last century, and the first outbreak in India was reported in the year 2006. Now, human infection has not yet, I repeat, not yet been reported in India. In India, it's essentially spread by migratory bird between September and March. Now, bird flu can infect a person. The question is, and people say, can infect a person through cooked food, true or false? The answer is false. Bird flu cannot, I repeat, cannot infect a person through cooked food. Now, last but not the least, it is safe to eat chicken or poultry products, true or false? The answer is true. It is safe to eat properly cooked poultry and game birds as well. Right, time for a very short break here on News Night. Don't go anywhere. Keep watching DD India. All right, time now for our In Focus segment, in which we are discussing about government states step up vigil against bird flu. All right, joining me are 2 very special guests, Mr. Untitled Chapter, Secretary, Department of Animal Husbandry and Dairying, and Dr. Neeraj Nischal, Associate Professor of Medicine at the All India Institute of Medical Sciences in New Delhi. Gentlemen, welcome to News Night. If I can start with you, Mr. Chaturvedi, what's the latest information that you can share with our viewers on the bird flu situation in the country tonight as we speak?
So, as far as the latest situation is concerned, there is no need to panic at this moment.
Right.
However, we have reports, confirmed reports from 4 states as of now. That is, in Rajasthan, we have the confirmed reports from 5 districts as of now. Madhya Pradesh confirmed reports from 3 districts, and the Rajasthan and Madhya Pradesh spread is in only crows. So there have been unusual mortality in crow, which is what is the cause of concern. And they have tested positive for the AI, that is avian influenza. Himachal, the report is in Pong Dam Wildlife Sanctuary, where the migratory birds have died, and they have tested positive for the avian influenza. In Kerala, the effect is on the poultry duck farms, not the poultry farm, the duck farms, and the deaths are only in the ducks of 2 districts with 5 epicenters. Besides this, there have been unusual mortality which has been noticed in Panchkula of Haryana with 2 epicenters where we have sent the samples for the testing, and the reports are awaited. But meanwhile, we have also issued advisory even to Haryana to
Right.
take all precautionary measures in addition to other action plan and the laid down protocol in this regard.
Right. Dr. Neeraj Nishchal, there's a lot of talk about various strains or variants of this virus from H5N1. Now we're talking about H5N8 as well. Now help our viewers understand these intricacies of the issues at hand here, number one. And number two, what are some of the preventive and control measures that people who are watching the show can take on their own or in association with other agencies to prevent the spread of this disease?
So, in simple terms, this influenza virus can be type A, type B, type C, and type D, and out of which type A is something which infect the poultry birds and the avian flu, which we are talking about.
Right.
And further classification of these different types depends on the two proteins, which specifically you can say are hallmark of these viruses, that is hemagglutinin and neuraminidase. So there are different types of this hemagglutinin and neuraminidase, 18 and 11 respectively, and based on the various combinations, these viruses are named. So if we say H5N1, that means that virus has type 5 hemagglutinin and type 1 neuraminidase. So depending on these permutation and combination, various type of this influenza A virus can exist. And out of these, sometimes they jump across the species. So usually they affect the bird family, all the birds, especially the wild birds. But sometimes they jump over to the poultry farm, and that is when this is a cause of concern. So it is widely believed that all the migratory birds which come to India during these seasons or travel across the world, so they can be basically a harbinger of bringing these type of viruses to various countries, like in ours. And once they started the domesticated birds, especially the poultry birds, then that is something of concern. The good thing is the transmission from birds to human is not a very common phenomenon. But again, this is an RNA virus and it has very high chances of mutation. And if one of the mutations make it efficient enough to survive in humans and transmission across humans, that will be something very catastrophic. We have seen with SARS-CoV-2 virus. So we don't want anything like that. So that's why stitch and time saves 9 should be applied to this thing. And this is time when we should act and ensure that this virus does not start affecting humans. So all necessary steps should be taken accordingly.
So what you're saying, doctor, is that transmission from birds to human can take place, but human to human transmission is rare. Am I correct?
Again, I said that transmission from birds to human is also rare. It's not very common unless...
All right, fair point.
Yeah,
and we are told that we have been told to avoid contact with infected live or dead birds. Now, some people are wondering, how safe is it to keep a pet at home? Would they need to take extra precaution for that matter?
So again, if you're talking about pet birds, then usually those birds are in cage and they have no access to outside birds. So definitely there's nothing of concern as long as they are confined to those cages and they have no contact with outside birds. Then it's safe. But again, like we have tendency that if you see a dead bird and this news of this avian flu is there, so some curious people might go and be a bit extra adventurous and try to investigate on their own. These type of activities should be avoided and they should refrain from going to such places where we have seen dead birds. So that is very important. Like any viral infection, it's important that this personal protective, we have been talking about the COVID-19 measures, that holds true for this virus as well. So adequate hygiene, hand hygiene, eat properly cooked food. That is also important. So if you are eating poultry things, as long as you are cooking it properly, then there is no chance of getting infected. And all those people who are dealing with these poultry products, they have to ensure that they maintain adequate hygiene. All the, whether it's hand washing, wearing masks, in fact, also be hygiene. All these aspects should be taken care of.
Right, fair point. Mr. Chaturvedi, coming to you now. Now, we are told the government has issued advisory to all states to take preventive or control measures going forward. We've also been told about an action plan which has been formulated over the years. since the first incidence of the bird flu way back in 2006. That's 14 years ago. What are the action plans say per se, and in specifically what can people do at large in the states to to sort of insulate themselves from the spread of this disease?
So as far as this action plan, which we had formulated way back in 2005 when the first incidence of bird flu occurred in our country, that plan is being updated from time to time, and the latest version is the 2021.
Mr. Chaturvedi, my apologies, I have to stop you there. We have to cut live to a news coming just now. We are standing by to hear from Foreign Secretary Harshvardhan Shringla, who will be speaking at the UN Security Council on maintenance of international peace and security, challenges of maintaining peace and security.
Has already taken important initiatives such as the high-level panel on fragile states to respond to the needs of countries in a flexible and rapid manner. Fifth, we need to ensure that the UN and its presence on the ground, its peacekeeping operations and special political missions are sufficiently mandated and resourced to implement a comprehensive understanding of peace and security. Having contributed significantly to UN peacekeeping in Africa for 6 decades, we have seen how peacekeeping missions are struggling to implement ambitious mandates. Peacekeeping missions should have a clear and well-thought-out exit strategy. Sixth, it is important to actively support the post-conflict reconstruction agenda of Africa. In this regard, the UN Peacebuilding Commission's efforts should be strengthened. Their efforts should be to prioritize the focus of UN efforts and coordinate the role of international financial institutions, the private sector, and civil society organizations. Seventh, the role of technology, especially digital technology, to improve public services, promote transparency and governance, and enhance the reach of democracy, human rights, and gender sensitivity, has not yet been sufficiently appreciated and factored in. COVID has brought us unparalleled grief, but also helped us to do things differently. We need to factor in technology with a human face in this mix. Finally, Africa today is facing serious challenges posed by the growth of terrorism, particularly in the Sahel and Horn of Africa. In this regard, initiatives such as AMISOM, G5 Sahel Joint Force, and Multinational Joint Task Force need more robust support from the Security Council and the international community. Mr. President, on a larger note, the Council needs to introspect that while more than half of the country issues on the Council's agenda pertain to Africa, the African continent does not have even a single voice amongst the permanent membership to defend its own interests. We need to correct this historical anomaly and collectively support the Ezulwini consensus. Mr. President, the bonds between India and Africa have been forged over several centuries. Long-standing trade and diaspora links across the Indian Ocean, a shared colonial past. Let me begin by thanking Tunisia for organizing today's open debate and acknowledge the presence of the Honorable President of Tunisia, His Excellency Mr. Kais Saied, as the President of the UN Security Council. I extend my best wishes to Tunisia for a successful presidency of the Council. I also thank the UN Secretary General, the Chairperson of the African Union Commission, and former President of Liberia for their briefings on this important topic. I wish to convey our deepest condolences for the cowardly terrorist attack in Niger. This attack has yet once again underscored the need for the international community to unite in its fight against terrorists and its sponsors.
Right, you were listening to the speech delivered by Foreign Secretary Harshvardhan Shringla to the United Nations Security Council Committee on Peace and Security. Right, if I can go back to a discussion on Newsnight, we're discussing about the bird flu situation obtaining in the country today as we speak. And I want to go back to my guest, Mr. Chaturvedi. Mr. Chaturvedi, I'm running out of time, so if I can just quickly ask you one last time in the discussion. You discussed about the measures taken by the government, including an action plan, advisories issued to the states. Is culling of infected birds an option very much on the table?
So as far as the measures which need to be taken, culling is one of the measures which needs to be undertaken in the infected zone. And this infected zone is normally a 1 kilometer radius all the birds either in the farm or in anybody's house for that matter needs to be culled. And this culling operation presently is on only in Kerala, where the duck farms have been affected. In the other 3 states, there is no culling operation because it is not required as of now.
Fair point. And if I can ask one more time on this discussion to Dr. Nishchal. Dr. Nishchal, we are told that there is no vaccine available as of now, although there are, they've been developed, but they're not available for widespread use. Therefore, my question to you is, if people or someone is infected, what does he or she do? Does he or she need to be hospitalized? Are there medicines available to, for mitigating the effects of this disease?
So again, it's very crucial that once you are exposed to such birds who might have this avian flu, then it's important that whenever you go to hospital, you get this history clearly. Because again, it has very non-specific presentation like any other viral pneumonia. So you have to make it very clear. And once you reach there, of course, the majority of the treatment will be symptomatic only. But yeah, there are antiviral drugs like oseltamivir, which may help you tiding over this disease. But again, like I said, don't rely on oseltamivir because it's again not a very effective and 100% useful medicine. It may help. So that's why prevention is the best form of cure here. So try not to indulge in such activities which may put you at risk of getting this avian flu.
All right, point well taken. Dr. Nishchal and Mr. Chaturvedi, thank you so much for joining us on Newsnight. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it. Right, time now to another story we are tracking on Newsnight. Now, Foreign Minister Subramaniam Jaishankar is visiting Colombo. Remember, it's his first overseas visit this year. Besides reviewing anti-terror cooperation, maritime security, trade and investment, India and Sri Lanka also discussed about post-COVID cooperation. Find out more in the next report.
External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar called on Sri Lankan President Gotabaya Rajapaksa on day 2 of his 3-day visit to Sri Lanka. The minister said in a tweet, I quote, conveyed warm greetings from PM Narendra Modi, discussed cooperation for post-COVID health and economic recovery. India will be a reliable partner in Sri Lanka's development, unquote. He also held talks with his Sri Lankan counterpart, Dinesh Gunawardene. Addressing a joint news conference after the talks, Jaishankar said that the pandemic did not dent the bilateral cooperation.
As maritime countries in the Indian Ocean, India and Sri Lanka have a shared interest in ensuring maritime security and safety. We have a long history of cooperation in this regard. India, as many of you know, has been a first responder in some emergency situations. I am confident that this domain of cooperation will continue to expand in the days ahead. We stand ready to enhance Sri Lanka's capabilities to meet growing maritime and security challenges.
He spoke about the Tamil issue, reminding his hosts about the importance of the 13th Amendment to Sri Lanka's constitution.
Our support for the reconciliation process in Sri Lanka is long-standing, as indeed for an inclusive political outlook that encourages ethnic harmony. It is in Sri Lanka's own interest that the expectations of the Tamil people for equality, justice, peace and dignity within a united Sri Lanka are fulfilled. That applies equally to the commitments made by the Sri Lankan government on meaningful devolution, including the 13th Amendment of the Constitution. The progress and prosperity of Sri Lanka will surely be advanced as a consequence.
The fishermen's issue came up for discussion too. India hopes for an early return of its fishermen from Sri Lanka. The fishermen were detained for inadvertently trespassing into the Sri Lankan waters. This was the Indian Foreign Minister's first overseas visit this year. Newsnight Desk, DD India.
All right, time now for our In Focus segment in which we are discussing about Sri Lanka keen on vaccines from India. Joining me is Dr. Mohan Kumar. He is a former Indian ambassador to France and Bahrain. He is currently the chairperson of the Research and Information System for Developing Countries, a think tank based in New Delhi. Now, he oversaw India's ties with Sri Lanka between 2005 and 2007 while he was the Joint Secretary in the Indian Foreign Ministry. Dr. Kumar, welcome to Newsnight. Now, this was Mr. Jaishankar's first overseas visit in the new year. A good move, you would say, on his part to focus on neighborhood first?
Absolutely, without doubt. And thank you very much for having me. Sri Lanka is not just a neighbor. It is a neighbor extremely important just south of Vindhyas across the Park Straits. And most people forget that Sri Lanka is so strategically located that it plays an important part in our whole matrix of Indo-Pacific. I mean, Indo-Pacific is not just about Quad, it's also about individual relationships that we have with Maldives, Sri Lanka, and some other countries. So I would say that this is a smart move to do this first in the new year. And it's a country he knows well. I'd like to remind your viewers that Dr. Jaishankar was posted as first secretary in the Indian High Commission in Colombo when I joined as Under Secretary Sri Lanka. This was in the late 80s. So he knows the country like the back of his palm as well. So I think really smart move, and I think necessary because we have a few issues to sort out with Sri Lanka as well.
Indeed. Since we are referring to neighborhood first policy, Dr. Kumar, I want to quote what Mr. Gunawardene, the Sri Lankan Foreign Minister, said in Colombo this afternoon. He said, and I quote him here, India's neighborhood first policy has made a positive impact on the health sector and economy during the period of unprecedented crisis, unquote. Clearly the focus on post-COVID cooperation as well, including on vaccines, Dr. Kumar.
Yes, I think we are taking forward our philosophy underlined by the Prime Minister that vaccines is not just going to be for one country or the other, but it is our duty to share as much as possible, as much as resources permit, with at least friendly neighbors like Sri Lanka. So I see it in two dimensions, really. One is to make available vaccines. It's not such a big country, Sri Lanka, so I think India can afford to help and make sure that everyone is vaccinated in Sri Lanka. Secondly, I also believe that like other countries, but perhaps a little bit more, because Sri Lanka is vulnerable to tourism. It's very highly dependent on tourism, and because of COVID, the economic setback in Sri Lanka has been quite significant. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if discussions are aimed at financial assistance from India to Sri Lanka, investment from India to Sri Lanka, and other forms of assistance in terms of imports from India to Sri Lanka. So I would say that the economic dimension in the post-COVID era, where we would like Sri Lanka's economy to also recover as quickly as ours, is something that could be the focus of discussions between the External Affairs Minister and the President, the Prime Minister and the External Affairs Minister of Sri Lanka.
Dr. Kumar, when we talk about infrastructure, investment, especially the Indo-Pacific, now some would say China is the proverbial elephant in the room, so to speak. In that context, how do you look at the evolving dynamic in the region? Because this is the Indo-Pacific, the Indian Ocean. So a lot of interest at play here in this part of the world, especially talk about Indian assistance, as you mentioned, for infrastructure projects, including, some would say, a revisit or a relook at the Colombo port project as well.
Oh, you're quite right. There is absolutely no getting away from that. China is the elephant in the room. What I would say is that 5 to 7 years ago, the relationship between Sri Lanka and China was of a completely different character. Today, I think Sri Lanka and many other countries in the region realize the pros and cons of a relationship with China, or by participating in their Belt Road initiative. I don't want to get into polemical discussions, but I think Sri Lanka, after the Hambantota experience, is quite chastened. And you're quite right. There is an issue about the East Port Terminal in the Colombo area, where I think the East Container Terminal is a joint venture between India, Japan, and it is a project that has evoked some resistance from the workers. One of the things on the External Affairs Minister's agenda would be to try and ascertain the views of Sri Lanka so that we can take a final view on the matter. I'm very sure that issues could be ironed out between India and Sri Lanka.
Indeed. And finally, Dr. Kumar, a couple of issues that the Minister touched upon in his joint press conference in Colombo. First, the Tamil issue, and I'm quoting Dr. Jaishankar here. He says, India has been strongly committed to the unity, stability and territorial integrity of Sri Lanka. Our support for the reconciliation process in Sri Lanka is long-standing, as indeed for an inclusive political outlook that encourages ethnic harmony, unquote. He goes on to remind his hosts of the importance of the 13th Amendment of their constitution. That's number one. And number two is the perennial issue of fishermen. And India says it looks forward to the early return of Indian fishermen from Sri Lanka, because this is an issue that's been bedeviling this relationship for quite some time now.
Yes, you did mention in your opening remarks very kindly that I was Joint Secretary in charge of Sri Lanka. But just before that, I was also posted as India's Deputy High Commissioner in Colombo. So both these issues, the 13th Amendment issue and the Indian fishermen issue, are long-standing issues between India and Sri Lanka. I was very fond of saying in Sri Lanka that the Indian soldiers, as part of the IPKF, laid down their lives for the unity and territorial integrity of Sri Lanka. It has always been a steadfast principle of India that while we want more rights for the Tamils, that they get their legitimate place within a Sri Lankan society, but we were absolutely clear from the beginning that this was to happen within a united Sri Lanka, without loss of any territorial integrity. So that is something the External Affairs Minister has reiterated. The 13th Amendment is an old chestnut. I do believe, as the External Affairs Minister said, it is as much in Sri Lanka's interest to make sure that the 13th Amendment is implemented in full. So I would say that that is a long-standing issue, and it's a reiteration of a long-standing position by a friend, by a country which values the unity and territorial integrity of Sri Lanka. On the Indian fishermen, which again is a long-standing issue, because our coastlines are depleted of fish. I'm speaking very frankly with you, Ramesh, because there is no point in putting a gloss on this issue. Our coastline is depleted of fish. So the Indian fishermen do cross over. Our desire, intention has been to educate the fishermen, to make sure that they are treated properly when they are taken into custody by Sri Lanka, and to make sure they are returned safely. This is again an issue that has been going back and forth for 20 years. Various measures have been considered, including positioning of GPS on fishermen's boats, so that the fishermen know that this is Sri Lankan waters and this is Indian waters. But you understand, of course, that fishermen will go where there is fish. I mean, it's not as if there is a border, the sea, that they are going to respect. But I must say, on the whole, Sri Lanka has been extremely accommodative in this regard. They have always made sure that the fishermen are treated okay, and that this is a long-standing issue. But I think we've had good conversations with Sri Lanka to find some meaningful, permanent solutions to the problem.
Absolutely. I'm afraid I'll have to leave it at that. Thank you so much for sparing time for us on Newsnight. Appreciate it. Thank you. Right, moving on, Prime Minister Modi on Wednesday held a video teleconference with his German counterpart, Chancellor Angela Merkel. The Prime Minister appreciated the long-standing role of Chancellor Merkel in providing stable and strong leadership at the European and global stage, and thanked her for guiding the growth of the India-Germany strategic partnership. The two leaders discussed key issues of mutual importance, including the response to the COVID-19 pandemic, bilateral ties, regional and global issues, particularly India-EU relations. The Prime Minister briefed Chancellor Merkel on the developments in India with regard to vaccine development and assured Chancellor Merkel of India's commitment to deploy its capacities for the benefit of the world. He conveyed his best wishes for early containment of the new wave of infections in Germany and other European countries. The PM welcomed Germany's decision to join the International Solar Alliance, expressed his desire to further strengthen cooperation with Germany under the platform of Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure. Now, noting that this year marks the 70th anniversary of setting up of bilateral relations between India and Germany and the 20th anniversary of the strategic partnership, the two leaders agreed to hold the 6th intergovernmental consultations at an early date this year and to set up an ambitious agenda for the same. Now, the news: PM Modi will dedicate to the nation the 306-kilometer-long Rewari-Madar section of the Western Dedicated Freight Corridor on Thursday at 11 a.m. via video conference. The Prime Minister will also flag off the world's first double-stack, long-haul, 1.5-kilometer-long container train hauled by electric traction from New Ateli to New Kishangarh. The governors and chief ministers of Rajasthan and Haryana, along with Union Minister Piyush Goyal, will be present on the occasion. With the inauguration of this section, seamless connectivity between the Western Dedicated Freight Corridor and Eastern Dedicated Freight Corridor will be achieved. In time now for all the news related to the COVID-19 pandemic. The next report tells you all about the preparations for rolling out a much-anticipated vaccine and the latest COVID data. Take a look.
Preparations across India for smooth rollout of the COVID-19 vaccination drive continued a day after Health Secretary announced that everything is in place for a rollout of the vaccination drive 10 days from the emergency use approval granted to Covaxin and Covishield. The emergency use approval was granted on 3rd January.
जिस भी दिन वैक्सीन को ये एक्सेलरेटेड अप्रूवल मिलता है उसके 10 दिन के भीतर हमारी तैयारी रोल आउट करने की है.
In Chennai, cold storage facilities are being prepared to procure and distribute the vaccines supplied by manufacturers. The city is one of the 4 primary vaccine depots. The other 3 are at Karnal, Mumbai and Kolkata. These depots, besides 37 other state-level depots, will get the vaccine from the manufacturer.
We are working in close coordination with Government of India, and already, as you have seen yesterday, we had a detailed inspection of the state vaccine center. 51 locations we have created new walk-in coolers which can store up to 2.5 crore vaccines. And today I also inspected the Government of India's drugstore.
The next link in the supply chain are state stores. They will receive supplies and will distribute them to district depots in refrigerated vans. Vaccination sites at primary healthcare centers as well as sub-centers are the final link in the distribution chain.
All the district vaccine stores and all the cold chain points all are ready, prepared to store the vaccines, and also we have already done the database of the healthcare workers.
Meanwhile, dry runs continued at Delhi's Kasturba Hospital to administer the vaccine. 286 session sites across 125 districts in all states or UTs prepared and tested as model session sites. Vaccination teams have been identified and trained in all aspects. All SOPs and protocols related to operationalization of COVID-19 vaccination were followed during the dry runs. Dry runs in Uttar Pradesh were also carried out. Uttar Pradesh Health Minister has said that the state is ready for another dry run before Makar Sankranti. He hit out at Samajwadi Party President Akhilesh Yadav for raising questions on the dry runs carried out in the state.
स्वास्थ्य विभाग ने सभी 75 जनपदों में 6-6 जगह पर ड्राई रन कराया. मकर संक्रांति के पहले ही एक और ड्राई रन करने जा रहे हैं. लगभग 1500 है. उन सभी सेंटर पर एक दिन में हम ड्राई रन कराएंगे. अखिलेश यादव तो मैं पहले भी बोला था, अभी थोड़ा बचपना बहुत है उनमें, बहुत जल्दी मुख्यमंत्री बन गए. थोड़ा इंतजार करें, थोड़ा विपक्ष में रहे.
Private companies are also coming forward to play their part in the vaccination drive. A company in Ahmedabad launched a portable storage device that will help in the transportation of the vaccines.
ये कोई भी टेम्परेचर को ट्रांसपोर्ट कर सकती है, चाहे वो -80 हो या +2 to 8 डिग्रीज हो. और ये वैक्सीन को वो टेम्परेचर पर कम से कम 5 दिन तक रख सकती है जब बाहर का तापमान 43 डिग्रीज कांस्टेंट है.
Meanwhile, there is a steady decline in the number of daily deaths recorded in the country. Less than 300 new deaths are being recorded in the country from the last 12 days. Keeping this in mind, Gujarat government has announced resumption of classes for class 10th and 12th students from 11th January. A close watch is also being kept on cases of the new strain of the novel coronavirus first reported in the UK. The total number of patients infected stands at 73 so far. All those infected have been kept in single-room isolation in designated healthcare facilities by the respective state governments. Their close contacts have also been put under quarantine. Comprehensive contact tracing has been initiated for co-travelers, family contacts and others. Genome sequencing on other specimens is going on. Newsnight Desk, DD India.
Moving on, a 10-member delegation of Ladakh met Union Home Minister Amit Shah on Wednesday in New Delhi. In view of the difficult geographical conditions and strategic importance of Ladakh, all the representatives expressed their concern with respect to conservation of language, culture and land of Ladakh, participation of the people of Ladakh in its development, protection of employment and changes in the demography of Ladakh region. The minister informed that under the leadership of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, the union government is committed towards the development of Ladakh and conservation of the land and culture of Ladakh. And shifting focus to eastern India now, no end to Trinamool's woes. Desertions galore, rampant infighting. All of it is proving to be a challenge for Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee ahead of the elections.
Ahead of the West Bengal Assembly elections, problems of the ruling party Trinamool Congress have been rising continuously. The dissatisfaction within Trinamool Congress is growing rapidly and party leaders are quitting one after another. In the latest case, Lakshmi Ratan Shukla resigned from the post of minister on Tuesday. At the same time, Owaisi's entry in the state politics is also a cause of worry for Mamata. Mamata was already troubled by BJP expanding its political base in the party, and the current scenario is causing her all the more tension. 16 days ago, Shubhendu Adhikari joined BJP, and now the resignation by former cricketer and sports minister clearly indicates that everything is not all right within the Trinamool Congress.
कि इन लोगों को अपमानित होना पड़ा, तो कहीं शायद यही वजह है कि जब ये लोग टीएमसी ज्वाइन किया था तब ये टीएमसी एक पार्टी था. आज टीएमसी एक प्राइवेट लिमिटेड कंपनी हो गया जिसका मालिक है अभिषेक बनर्जी.
बीजेपी की ऐसा पार्टी है जहां पे आप खुल के काम कर सकते हो, जो टीएमसी में बिल्कुल ही नहीं है. वो मतलब वो एनवायरनमेंट ही नहीं है जहां पे आप कुछ अलग से सोच सकते हो. वहां पे दीदी जो बोलेगी वही माना जाएगा. तो मतलब ये तो वक्त ही बताएगा कि वो संन्यास लेंगे या बीजेपी में आएंगे, लेकिन अगर वो राजनीति को कंटिन्यू करना चाहते हैं, मैं श्योर हूं कि बीजेपी में आएंगे.
Trinamool Congress seems to be in defensive mode in the state. Party leader Madan Mitra seemed evasive, terming the resignation by Lakshmi Ratan Shukla and other leaders their personal decision.
TMC is talking to Lakshmi Ratan Shukla. I believe that this won't be proper to say that people are leaving the TMC.
In the political slugfest for Assembly's 294 seats, BJP is continuously attacking Trinamool Congress. At the same time, AIMIM is also preparing to open its account in West Bengal after Bihar. It is eyeing 100 seats, having minority voters' influence. Party chief Asaduddin Owaisi has raised the political heat by meeting Pirzada of Purpura Sharif on Tuesday. Amidst these equations, it is clear that the upcoming assembly election is posing a tough challenge to Mamata Didi. Newsnight Desk, DD India.
Now, Jammu and Kashmir, Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand, Delhi and its adjoining areas, large parts of northern India are in the grip of a cold wave condition. It disrupted life in many places. We get you a ground report.
Normal life has been disrupted in the Himalayan region of the country due to heavy snowfall since the weekend. Life came to a standstill across Kashmir. The lifeline of Srinagar-Jammu National Highway remained closed for the fourth day on Wednesday. Roads and homes in the Kashmir Valley, including Srinagar and Gulmarg, have seen accumulation of over 1 feet snow. Flights have been disrupted at the Srinagar airport. According to the Met Office, snowfall is expected to continue for the next 2 days. The Jammu Kashmir Disaster Management Department has issued avalanche warning in Kashmir. Apart from this, a yellow alert has been sounded.
बर्फ पड़ी है. अब लोगों में बहुत ज़्यादा मुश्किलात हुई है क्योंकि बर्फ पड़ने से सड़कें भी बंद हो गई है और यहाँ के जो लोगों के हालात है वो इससे बहुत नागफ्ता हो गए हैं.
Continuous snowfall taking place in the hills of Uttarakhand. A thick layer of 5 feet snow has gathered in the vicinity of the famous Badrinath shrine. Over 3 feet snow has been seen in the Kedarnath shrine, and a white blanket of snow is covered all around. Sporadic rain lashed Delhi and the national capital region for the 4th consecutive day on Wednesday. Hail also pounded parts of New Delhi and Gurugram as the national capital region woke up to a gloomy morning. Several areas received heavy rain accompanied with thunder and lightning.
तापमान है लगभग आप कह सकते हैं कि 6-7 डिग्री के आसपास न्यूनतम तापमान, अधिकतम तापमान लगभग 18 डिग्री के आसपास जनवरी के एंड तक रहेगा ही रहेगा हमारे पास। तो इस तरह की ठंड जनवरी तक बनी रहेगी हमारे पास। दूसरा एक चीज़ और पॉइंट है कि अभी चूंकि वेस्टर्न डिस्टर्बेंस निकल गया है तो अभी हमारे पास फॉग की कंडीशन पूरे नॉर्थ वेस्ट इंडिया में कल से स्टार्ट होगी। आप देखेंगे कि पंजाब, हरियाणा, पश्चिमी उत्तर प्रदेश और राजस्थान का जो इलाका है, साथ साथ दिल्ली एनसीआर, यहाँ पर कल से हमारे पास ज़्यादातर जगहों पर घना कोहरा छाया रहेगा और ये सिचुएशन अगले 3 दिनों तक बनी रहेगी।
It has been raining in the national capital for 4 consecutive days now due to the influence of a strong western disturbance, and this is almost coming to an end. While on the one hand, cold will return, the dense fog will add to the woes of the people. Snowfall in the hills and rain has led to states in North India shivering and reeling in bone-chilling cold. Newsnight Desk, DD India.
Now, a notice allegedly issued by the Staff Selection Commission claims that due to the increasing load on SSC servers, a new tier has been introduced and candidates can only apply for jobs after qualifying it. The government has since clarified that it is fake. No such notice has been issued. And the Union Health and Family Welfare Ministry has said in a tweet that some apps named #CoWin, apparently created by unscrupulous elements to sound similar to an upcoming official platform by the government, are on app stores. Now, do not download or share personal information on such apps. The official platform of the Home Ministry will be adequately publicized upon its launch. Now, Joe Biden's Democratic Party took a giant step on Wednesday towards seizing control of the U.S. Senate as they won the first of 2 Georgia runoffs, hours before Congress was set to certify the president-elect's victory over Donald Trump. Reverend Rafael Warnock's victory capped a grueling 9-week runoff campaign and put Georgia's other knife-edge race in the spotlight for its potential to impact the balance of power in Washington, D.C.
Democrats inched closer to taking control of the Senate on Wednesday, winning one of the 2 Georgia seats in a pair of runoff elections. Democratic challenger Rafael Warnock beat Republican incumbent Kelly Lofla in a hotly contested U.S. Senate race in Georgia. He will become the state's first black U.S. senator.
I am going to the Senate to work for all of Georgia. No matter who you cast your vote for in this election, in this moment in American history, Washington has a choice to make. In fact, all of us have a choice to make.
Democrat John Ossoff held a narrow lead over Republican David Perdue in another race. Even as the result was awaited, 33-year-old Ossoff claimed victory. He will be the Senate's youngest member if he wins. Tuesday's showdown is crucial to Democrat President-elect Joe Biden's ability to achieve an ambitious legislative agenda after succeeding President Donald Trump. Democrats must win both contests to take control of the Senate. A Democratic sweep would create a 50-50 split in the Senate and give Vice President-elect Kamala Harris, as President of the Senate, the tie-breaking vote after she and Biden take office on January 20. In case Republicans hold the second seat, they will effectively wield veto power over Biden's political and judicial appointees, as well as many of his legislative initiatives in areas such as economic relief from the coronavirus pandemic, climate change, healthcare, and criminal justice. The runoff elections became necessary when no candidate in either senatorial race exceeded 50% of the vote in November. The twin races drew record levels of national attention, with both President Trump and Biden campaigning in the state on Monday. Campaigning for the Democratic candidates, the U.S. President-elect Joe Biden said on Monday that voters in Georgia have the power to change America. The tumultuous contest's final days have been dominated by President Donald Trump's continued effort to subvert the presidential election results. On Saturday, he is alleged to have pressured the Secretary of State of Georgia, a fellow Republican, to find votes to to reverse Biden's victory, claiming it was a result of massive fraud. Trump's ongoing efforts to undo Biden's victory have caused a dramatic split in his own party and condemnation from critics who accuse him of undermining democracy. Newsnight Desk, DD India.
And my colleague William Denslow now joins me from New York. William, fill us in on the latest you're picking up on those crucial elections in Georgia.
Well, the message coming from media organizations here in the United States is that they have called the race between Kelly Lofla and Reverend Rafael Warnock in favor of the Reverend. Now, he was and is set to become the first black Democrat to ever win a Senate seat in the southern parts of the United States. A monumentous moment in US history right there. When it comes to the other Senate runoff race, that between the GOP Senator David Perdue and the Democrat Jon Ossoff, well, that has not been called yet. It is very close indeed, with 98% of the vote in. Jon Ossoff, the Democrat, leading about 50.2% compared to 49.8%. We have heard from Jon Ossoff, who's 33 years old. He would become the youngest senator to sit in the US Capitol in some 40 years. Now, he has essentially declared victory, but the major organizations, the major media networks here in the US have not. He says he is looking forward to serving in the US Senate with integrity, with humility, and with honor. We've also heard from US President Donald Trump on the subject. They say he says that Democrats are essentially toying with the Senator Perdue, and that they say that the Democrats have the votes needed. President Trump again making baseless accusations that these elections were rigged.
And William, very quickly, what does it all mean for incoming US President Joe Biden? We are told that Democrats need to win that second seat as well to wrest control of the Senate in their favor, to enable Biden to pass laws over the next 4 years. So what does it look like for Biden and the Democrats now as we speak?
A win for Jon Ossoff would be absolutely crucial. Of course, that would mean a 50-50 tie in the US Senate between Democrats and Republicans. But with Joe Biden in the presidency, that means that Kamala Harris, the vice president-elect, will be the tie-breaking vote. So that essentially swings the favor in the Senate in favor of the Democrats. We have just heard from President-elect Joe Biden. He says that with these wins in Georgia, he says that the people of the US have spoken. They say that they want action when it comes to crisis we face, when it comes to fighting the COVID-19 pandemic, when it comes to the economic crisis the US is facing, injustices when it comes to racial injustices, as well as when it comes to voting reform. So a very strong message there from the President-elect.
And one last time, William, what were the issues at play in Georgia? Were they local issues at play, or were they national issues also to be factored in? And was the result of the election so far in Georgia, was that against Trump or in favor of Biden in particular? How do you read the results so far?
There'll certainly be plenty of time spent picking the bones out of this election, but there is certainly a combination of factors at play. Of course, the Republicans playing on strong messages such as being pro-gun rights, anti-abortion, a clear message from them. But, of course, those are issues that we see playing out across the United States. President Trump was very much, though, front and centre in this race. Of course, he was in Georgia on Monday, and while he was vouching, while trying to drum up support and trying to drum the get out and vote effort, at the same time during a rally held in Georgia, he was once again stating that the presidential election was rigged and very much undermining the election process. Many analysts look at that and look at the weeks since November's election of President Trump trying to break down the integrity of the election system, and many will wonder whether that had put off Republicans from heading to the polls and voting for Republican candidates this time around. Of course, the issue of stimulus was also a prominent part. Of course, Joe Biden was pushing for those $2,000 stimulus checks. He was saying that only with Democrats in control of both houses of Congress would he be able to get those major reforms that he says are so crucial.
Indeed. William Denslow in New York, thank you so much for joining us on Newsnight with the latest from Georgia. Appreciate it. Thank you. It's a wrap, but news continues here on DD India. You can catch all the latest updates on our social media, mobile and digital platforms. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.